So my name is Susan Dillon. I am the CEO and a co-founder of Aro Biotherapeutics. We are a biotech company in the Philadelphia area, and our focus is on rare and orphan diseases that affect patients with genetically inherited neuromuscular disease, as well as various types of immune diseases. I have spent a long time in my career in drug discovery and development, and I'm very excited at this time with the progress that we've been making at Aro for our lead program, which is a new mechanism for the treatment of patients with Pompe disease. So Pompe disease is a rare neuromuscular disease, and it is caused by a buildup of glycogen in various muscles in the body. The late onset form of Pompe disease denotes that the diagnosis occurred in either adults or in pediatric patients, but typically after about 6 months or so of age. So the late onset patients are typically diagnosed because of clinical symptoms that they may be experiencing. That can include muscle weakness, difficulty ultimately with mobility, and in the more advanced forms of late onset Pompe disease, or LOPD, also difficulty breathing. So initially, what might drive a patient to seek a diagnosis would be those clinical symptoms. However, the diagnosis is ultimately confirmed through a genetic test that can detect a mutation in a particular enzyme, which is in the muscles and is responsible for that aberrant buildup of glycogen in the muscles. Now, there is a test now that's used for newborns that is routinely part of the panel of various testing that's done. It's called newborn screening. It is available now in many places in the United States and in some other countries. And that affords the ability for a diagnosis essentially at birth, even if the infant is not symptomatic yet. So more and more there are people, both juveniles as well as young adults, that may have been diagnosed and will be followed closely for the appearance of clinical symptoms, even if they don't have symptoms when that genetic test result ultimately may come back as positive. They're managed through primarily a type of therapy which is called enzyme replacement therapy. Very often you'll hear that referred to as ERT. Enzyme replacement therapy is a form of the native enzyme which does not function properly in patients with Pompe. And so that enzyme is administered as a therapeutic in an effort to replace the enzyme which does not have full activity. Enzyme replacement therapy has been around for a long time. There are several versions of enzyme replacement therapies that are on the market. They do have efficacy in patients, but unfortunately, in many patients, the efficacy is limited and it can be short-lived. So it's important to remember that LOPD is a progressive disease. It will continue to progress. And unfortunately, the enzyme replacement therapies really don't stop that progression. They may slow it in some patients, but there is a big need for new approaches in order to further interrupt the progression of Pompe disease. Sure. So we call it ABX 1100, and this is Aro's lead program, and it is for the treatment of late onset Pompe disease. It is a therapeutic that we are developing which is specifically designed to target the muscle, and that is because the muscles are, broadly speaking, the muscles in the body are the organs that are most profoundly affected in Pompe disease. So we think that one of the great advances of our therapy is that it is very efficient in being able to actually go to the various muscle tissues. Once it's in the muscle, ABX 1100 works by reducing the production of glycogen. And the way that it does that is by specifically interrupting a certain enzyme, which is called glycogen synthase 1 or GYS1. And that is the enzyme that is required to make new glycogen. So we believe by interrupting that process of making new glycogen, that ultimately we will be able to reduce the glycogen in the muscle of patients and hopefully have a very important effect in terms of slowing or blocking the progression of their disease. We've just opened a clinical trial. It's called a phase 1b study for adult late-onset Pompe disease patients. And these can be patients that are already taking the enzyme replacement therapy, which is the standard of care. The study will start in Canada, and we are hoping to expand the clinical sites beyond Canada into the US and other countries over the next several months. We are just on the heels of having completed a clinical trial in normal volunteers, and that trial established the safety profile of ABX 1100, which was very, very important. And it also gave us some preliminary insight into how ABX 1100 is able to actually get to the muscle and have an effect on that critical GIS1 enzyme in the muscle. So we're taking all of that information that we learned from this first trial now completed, which was done in normal volunteers, and we're applying that to now start to look at the safety and initial activity in the muscle of patients with late onset Pompe disease. The trial is open. We do hope to enroll patients in Canada this year, and we would expect that we will continue enrolling in this trial throughout most of next year. And at the same time, we are planning for the next stage of development, which would be a larger pivotal trial where patients that are enrolled in the trial would be able to receive ABX 1100 for up to 12 months or longer in order to assess the effect on the clinical progression of their disease. I think that we're very aware that for the Pompe patient community and for the treating physicians, that there has been an interest in new mechanisms of action that can help us go beyond enzyme replacement therapy in terms of efficacy as well as improved convenience for patients. And when we designed ABX 1100, we had both of those factors in mind, as well as, of course, making a new drug that has a very, very good safety profile. And so far, it is early days, but so far the data that we've generated looks very encouraging, and we're really excited to be able to partner now with the patient community and the physician community to move our new therapy into these critical trials.